Every business should have some presence over email. The wrong amount of emails to be sending is zero. I'm a big believer of like free work is marketing in general.
That body of work that you built up doing the free stuff is like so much better than sending someone look at our meta ads or whatever. You can stop doing the free work at a certain point and just be like, look at all of the work we've done. Look at the sequence we wrote for X. Now your cost per call is like equal to Meta. Late Checkout is a holding company where we build and buy internet businesses powered by community. And really what we mean by community is this formula that we call the ACP framework.
Every hour that someone consumes with you long form corresponds to like either $100 or $1,000 that they'd be willing to spend with you over time.
So I think a lot of people, they're just trying to do so many things at one time that they actually do nothing. And so it's just like, you should just explore your curiosity and do things that don't scale sometimes, because then you might see clarity. So you're not being curious and you're not being focused. It's nice to just like follow your gut and do things that you think might be valuable.
Jordan, welcome to the show. I'm excited to be jamming today.
Dude, me too. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming.
Been a long time coming. And we were just chatting beforehand. I was like, what's new? And you're like, I got to think. And then you listed quite a few things that are been incubated and launched and repositioned. So I'm excited to get into it. For people who aren't familiar with both yourself and Late Checkout, maybe just a brief intro would be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again for having me. I'm pumped to jam today. I'm Jordan Mix. I'm an operating partner at Late Checkout. Late Checkout is a holding company where we build and buy internet businesses powered by community. And really what we mean by community is this formula that we call the ACP funnel, the ACP framework, audience, community, product. So find a passionate audience, put them in a community, find out what they have an issue with, where they need help, and then build products that they're lining up and begging for. So when we're looking at acquisitions or looking at incubation, we operate around that lens of this ACP, and we think it's just a really good foundation to build internet and really just businesses across the board using that framework.
Now, when you say an internet business, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's pretty like every business right now, I guess. You could make an internet business. It's really like finding customers and leveraging the asymmetric scale that the internet offers. So, doing one thing that can be published or sold 1,000 times, like content, instead of having a one-on-one meeting, hosting a workshop with 10 people, and like then publishing that to the internet. So just those asymmetric scale opportunities that allow you to build and grow businesses, I think is what I would consider an internet business. I think any business can be an internet business if they wanted it to be.
Yeah, but I think the majority within your model would be there's software companies and then service companies. Is there anything like missing from that? Maybe some info as well?
Yeah,
like
info,
education.
memberships, agencies, and SaaS is mainly the stack of what we focus on. Some media, but we really like view media as like content top of funnel. We don't really monetize any media within the whole company. It's really just like the flywheel mechanism to grow.
Yeah, the media is just something that you do for effective marketing rather than standalone. That's the majority of who we serve with the content that we write. There's maybe like 5 to 10% of our clients are companies where the majority of their income is just ad revenue. And like they would be considered a media business model. And the rest of them, we were writing content in the service of taking people to build affinity or take them through a customer journey and nurture. So it's just something we do to enhance a business, which is selling services or some other product.
Yeah, that is the better model, in my opinion, than living and dying off the temperature of the ad market. I'm sure you've seen a lot of different cycles in the ad media game. I like to say like it's nice sprinkles on the cupcake, but if it's your cupcake, you might be in a bad spot as a sustainable business model. But then there's some that are like very, they're killing it and they're eating off of ads and affiliates. So but yeah, that's what are you seeing mainly being the like biggest opportunity in content and content using it from top of funnel, middle of funnel, and then ultimately like a convert sequence. What are you guys seeing right now as the trends and ideas you're giving?
Yeah, we cover a lot of ground in terms of who we serve, right? A lot of the time we are taking over a list that is really not much more than a CRM that was just not re-engaged with at all. So maybe they've had a sales team for a couple of years and they're just not really diligent about like what I call the infinite nurture. And I didn't invent that, but the newsletter just being, now we have a plan to touch base with this person once a week forever, rather than they go through this 5 email sequence. If there's never a conversion, then end of story. It's like they're on this list until the end of time, until either they opt out or, something else crazy happens. So we do a lot of business with those people, and then a lot of takeover. For the people where we just are taking over, like they just want our team to be reliable writers, because maybe they created a media asset themselves, they got it to a certain point, and now they want to not be the writer. They've already kind of thought through the monetization. So we're really in that situation are a bit more of a work for hire model, rather than like we're coming in to tell you how to run this better. It's like you've gone it this far and you literally need a writer. And then the other people, we are just really B2B focused. So I don't know if that totally answers the question in terms of like where I see the opportunity is. A lot of our positioning, at least my positioning, has been, and at least now we don't have like, these, we don't have that like $10,000 per month package where we come in and just like go crazy. A lot of this is, in my belief, and a lot of my like philosophy about a lot of marketing is so much can be not even just like the 80-20, because that sounds a bit cliche to say, but just, are you doing the basics at all? Right? Like I'm trying to take a business, and a lot of what I say, like if I go to an event and the way I kind of introduce what we do is I'm like, every business should have some presence over email. Like I just start the conversation there. We all agree you should have like the wrong amount of emails to be sending is 0. And the place I kind of learned, like where this idea took hold in my mind way before I was doing this, and not even related to marketing, is I was listening to a podcast with Anthony Pompliano. And this is when I was still in college, before I met him, before I ever worked for him. And I don't even remember. I think it was, do you know that guy Jake on Twitter, blog of Jake? He's got like the blue profile picture. He's an anonymous account. His name is Jake. And his whole brand is just Jake. And he's had a lot of big people on his show. Like he had, like in his first 50 episodes, even with pretty small reach, he got like Vitalik, Balaji. Like he had some huge names, like even with, it was impressive. But he had Pomp on one episode, and he's kind of asking like, and this was the previous bull market. And he was kind of asking all those things of like, I have family and they asked me if I should buy any, and I don't really know them. Like, I don't know what advice to give people. And the way Pomp described it is like, we can all agree that like the right amount of Bitcoin for people to have is not 0. It's like, it's pretty easy to convince someone that you're interested, just have more than 0. And so that's just something that's kind of stuck in my mind, is just like this like get off 0 mentality. And so much of the conversation I have with potential customers is really just there. And there's a lot we can do to like, we're in there, we're sending out a weekly email, but it's kind of one of those classic paradoxes of like the beginner buying all the expensive gear. It's like, let's just make sure we're sending weekly emails. And then now we have data, we can look at patterns, we can segment the list, we can see who's engaging, what we can do to kind of re-enroll the super engaged subs in something a bit more, I don't want to say like aggressive, but something a bit more direct response. Just to, okay, now they're on the list, they're clearly enjoying the content. Now let's send someone to actually try to convert that person with intent signals. Like, you've done nothing with this list for years. Let's just start doing something with it. And kind of like a land and expand strategy.
Yeah. So step 1 is start sending a weekly email, right? Like get off 0. Yep. You got this list. It's dormant. Start sending a weekly email to let them know that you exist. Step 2 is maybe put them down in like a nurture sequence or something to let them know about a specific offer. Maybe that's triggered from a poll. Is that how you guys are thinking about it? Are you taking like the funnel approach where it's like, if newsletter is like the top of funnel, obviously social is the top of funnel, and then they get into the newsletter, and that's like the top of the like newsletter funnel, the top of middle funnel.
I didn't know social is totally the top. I mean, it is a part of the top of funnel, but not the entire top of funnel.
Yeah.
Like, we're really heavily in B2B, and less so with even people. Like, I think the opportunity in B2B, the ROI is so massive. But if you just like shake it, it's like shaking a tree, right? There's like, you just forgot to shake the tree a long time ago and fruit comes out of it, and people just don't realize how many trees they have. It's not like we're partnering very often. And I mean, we do partner with these people in terms of like what kind of outreach we're doing. for the types of clients we were like seeking out to work with, the ROI in B2B when you are selling something that's like a $2,000 retainer, a $3,000 retainer, and you just have maybe a couple hundred people who just kind of forgot you existed and then just got busy and didn't not convert for any reason. So like our top of funnel is just, founders doing biz dev or sales teams doing biz dev and building lists of like interested leads who have interacted positively with a campaign, rather than like you're posting threads on Twitter. It's less like that creator loop and more so trying to teach, and I don't want to use the word teach kind of in like a statusy way, but just inform people that like, hey, this is just such a basic thing to be doing and you just need to be doing it. And so, yeah, then once we have started the newsletter, we've gotten a cadence for it. We've gotten, do some things like some polls and I don't have like a proper word for this, but like leaving a call to action to try to solicit feedback rather than just a poll, but like starting a conversation. From there, you start to discern some trends, testing different formats, testing different content blocks. So some people just want like it's basically just a educational blog post sent over email. And that's the structure of the newsletter. Other people go with your, section wise, here's my 3 tweets I thought were most interesting this week and a book I recommend and 2 news stories and then a long thing. Like they kind of have like the columns like a newspaper. And then you see which of those are performing. But so often we are just seeing great results just doing the basics. That's still been our core focus before. Like we just don't need to make people happy and to start winning. Like we're not trying to squeeze every single last drop, and we want to, and that, we want to get there, but so much. And that's a lot of like, again, my philosophy is like, just by showing up at all, you've set yourself apart from all the people who aren't showing up. And it's actually quite difficult to show up at all.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if you've never shown up before, it's like starting that first time showing up and then staying consistent with it. It's really hard. Yeah. We see a lot of that too. And there's just a huge opportunity in B2B where I think the follow-up and consistency drops off dramatically. Like I'll see people do workshops, like get thousands of people to attend the workshop. And then they'll say, yeah, I'll send out the recording, but it's like 48 hours, 72 hours, a week almost sometimes goes by. And they like don't send out the recording, or they do. And it's just like literally like a link to like watch it on YouTube. And it's like, you just fumbled so much of the bag by just not optimizing that stepwise function of like, after you got the email in a workshop, just following up and following through with like an asymmetric touch point of like, you're talking to 1,000 people. You're basically having 1,000 sales calls by pressing by pressing one button. And it's like a little forethought can save you 1,000 hours basically on like a 1 hour sales call. And so, yeah, like when you talk about the creator loop, a lot of people you see are just like trying to grow their list so massively. But I've seen like, 200 person, 500 person lists do 10K, 20K a month, easy, when you have a high value retainer or just a high value product that opens the door to expand like the lifetime value of that customer. So I think like B2B companies should just be studying the creator funnels, and they're going to end up making a lot more money than any of the creators ever will. So,
yeah, that's what we seek out, existing healthy businesses, or it's like, this is just a no-brainer thing you should be doing to add on, rather than trying to find someone who's great. They've gotten a lot of attention. Now they don't know what to do with it. So, we have people who are, an excellent at delivering a service and have all sorts of great results. And they've just really, the keyword is nurture. Just the nurture has not been happening. And that's why, a lot of agency and service businesses never really get out of the land of like referrals and
word of mouth,
leads coming from anywhere, but referrals and like your existing network and just meeting people, which is basically just referrals just from yourself, because they just don't know how to take someone who like isn't familiar and familiarize them. Or like, again, the word is nurture. It's especially in these kind of global economy, like you're saying, with your kind of defining trait of the internet business is that there's a global market rather than a local market. And when that's the case, it's like, why do you choose any SEO agency over another? And for the most part, unless it's like price, which most people are, again, we're not trying to compete on price. It's, well, who do I know, like, and trust? And most people, you only know, like, and trust the people that you're introduced to because you know the person who introduced you, or you've met the person yourself. But then with content, that's again the parasocial relationship. That's how you slowly take people from it. And there's all sorts of, I forget who I heard this from. I gotta like put myself exactly where I was. I was in, like, I'm trying to remember like the space I was in when I heard the thing, and then like use it to see if that can remind me. But the point is, like, there's some, I think it was Daniel Fazio from who's Cold Email Wizard on Twitter, and on YouTube is just Daniel Fazio. And he said this thing that's like an hour of, like, every hour that someone consumes with you long form corresponds to like either $100 or $1,000 that they'd be willing to spend with you over time. And there's probably ratios just like that for tweets. It's like if someone reads 50 tweets from you a month, they have a propensity to spend $500 a month with you. And people just don't realize that there's this game besides like, well, if I meet someone at a conference and they trust me and we've played golf twice, then it's whatever. Like, you can do that. Like you said, 1,000 people attend a 1 hour webinar with you, and then they read 5 emails from you, and then they see 5 of your Instagram posts. And it's like, okay, now they feel like they know you, and you've achieved that same effect, except you haven't extended any unique marginal effort in the one-on-one.
Exactly. That's like really like, we have this like value map basically that we use. It's like the effort ramps up from writing to video, like as far as like what it takes to create, but the affinity also ramps up. So there's like that value intersection of like, what is the most scalable thing you can possibly do with as few people or with as few time put in, and hit as much people as you possibly can without losing trust, without being like direct response marketing and like slimy. Obviously you need to do it in like a trust building way, but a well thought out, just like middle of the funnel nurture sequence is a really, really good start. And so many people are not doing it. Like we're constantly improving our middle of the funnel nurture sequences, because like once they enter our universe, it's like we want to put them down a series of pipes, and whether that's workshops or email sequences, and really just like siphon them through, tag them, give them offers, like really like serve them in the way that they want to be served based on how they're interacting with the content and responding and replying. And so, yeah, we think of it like a series of pipes. I'd be curious what you think about it.
I think a lot of people just lose track of, the first thing that you said was that the webinar is equivalent of having had 1,000 1-hour sales calls. But like, if you relate everything back to the unit of comparing it to what it would look like face to face, and then how you've leveraged that out, that's like, because people hear email sequences, people hear pipes, people hear webinar, and then they just like that. There's too many layers of abstraction, and you've just lost sight of like what is actually happening here. And it's like, marketing is communication, and we're just scaling the communication. And obviously there's certain things that create a perception that are different. Not all of marketing is just replicating and like a bad proxy for a one-on-one conversation between humans. But if you kind of simplify and assume that's all marketing is where you can't have a one-on-one conversation between humans. So now we want to kind of do the best approximation of that as possible. The middle of the funnel nurture sequence, like, what are we actually saying in that? Like, what is again, a course? If we relate that, it's like, okay, if you are sitting down teaching this person, like you see someone, you encounter them in the street, you realize, or you have the information that this person doesn't know about this, and you're like, oh my gosh, you have to know about this. Let me spend the next 20 minutes explaining this to you. Like, what is the effect that interaction would have on that person? Like, they'd be like, one, obviously could like see their eyes light up and like see what ideas are resonating, and those things don't translate. But what effect does it have on someone like you have spent the time, and they give you credit for being the person to have put those ideas in their head and to educated them, especially like if something you're doing, let's say like you're teaching people, and there's a lot of products around teaching people how to use the ACP framework to build their own businesses. It's like, you and I meet up in person. We were somewhere in Nashville. You're like, Lewis, you're not using community in your business enough. I think you should be. You spend 30 minutes just like making your best pitch to me about why I should be doing it. I come back to you 3 months later. I say, I did this. I made a lot of money. Like, there's a lot of value that was built there in terms of like my propensity to buy anything from you again, even if I didn't even buy the first thing. And so all of these, like when you're listening to something like this, you just have to like forget the terms and like think like critically, like what is actually happening here right now? It's like, if my weekly newsletter is a news brief, is like when you are hanging out with your friends and like you just have a lot of passion about like, I just really like to share what's happening related to like, I just keep up with Google SEO news because like that's my business. I care about it. And I just happen to be sharing that with you. It's just not losing sight of that. I don't know if that totally, if that was a separate train of thought or if that stuck to the original script, but
No, for sure. I mean, it's like what we're doing right now. This could
mm-hmm,
very easily be a phone call,
mm-hmm,
and we could just be like jamming on like, hey, what are you seeing in the like middle of the funnel, and how is marketing? What are you seeing with your customers, and how are you helping them like nurture? Like we could easily have that behind closed doors, but
exchange
we're
voice notes
we're,
over the DM, same conversation.
we're doing it on a recording. It's going to be published. It's going to live forever on here. You know, we're doing this once, and who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how many followers this will garnish? Maybe like someone will hit you up about, you know, helping them build out their nurture sequence. Maybe like we find a operator that's going to like help us acquire our next business or build our next business. So that's how we like think about content a lot, and just like marketing at scale is just like taking the things that can happen behind closed doors and like blowing the roof off it with like the power of the internet. Even if like this gets 100 views, 1,000 views, 10,000, it scales with obviously like the size of the impact, but just because it's going to get, if it gets a low amount of views, there's still like, I always think about this, like people are like, oh, I only had like 100 views on my tweets. And I was like, but imagine like tweeting into a room of 100 people or getting on a mic and like literally like talking to 100 people. You would be like tremoring, but
Mm-hmm.
you just spoke to 100 people by, you know, tweeting. So I think like frame breaking that stuff out is really necessary, because it's like, yeah, the buzzy words, funnel, nurture, middle of the sequences, like all offers, all that stuff, like people's eyes just glaze over and it just feels like fake, like unicorn dust. So I think what you said is really good to just like break it down in normal people words.
It's not. It's just as important for. It's not about like, oh, lay people can't understand this unless we break it
Yeah.
down. It's like non-lay people forget what they're doing all the
Yeah,
time.
totally.
Is
Yeah.
like where I think about it.
Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, I know all those words too, but it's just a more cognitive load to think about. Like when you're saying like, oh, a nurture sequence with multiple tags and segments, and like we transition them to an offer, other than like I send an email to 1,000 people. Like it's just very easy to understand, like sending an email to 1,000 people
Yeah,
or
it's like why
60,000 or
why are we
whatever it
here
is.
and what are we doing exactly? I think a lot about. Oh, I'm completely forgetting what I was about to say. Oh, the what makes selling what I sell difficult, and like what I like the difficulty in kind of explaining like, oh, why should you do content, is just picking like what reason to explain the benefit of it to someone, right? Like that's where I get stuck, because it's like I could take this any direction, because yeah, there's kind of like this fun intellectual conversation about like leverage. It's like, well, again, it doesn't take any more effort. We build this list from 1,000 people to 10,000 people. You're putting in the same amount of effort, and just someone who just like enjoys thinking in the abstract about systems is just excited about how that looks on paper, and like that's super fun. But then also the same thing I think about the. This is less relevant a bit to what we do, because we do a lot of like, you know, ghostwriting and kind of done for you work. But I think about, there was a opportunity I had a few weeks ago where a friend asked me to make a 6-week course for his school community with, you know, you obviously know school, SKOOL. And
Mm-hmm.
there, I was kind of hesitant. I'm like, I don't know if like we're getting any leads from this. Like, this is like, I've got my quarterly goals. This wasn't on them. Like, why would I say yes to this thing right now? Maybe I should push it to later. But I kind of just decided to do it anyway. And the amount of clarity, and this is kind of like a David Perel, like I'm a big fan of him and things that he talks about, and he's obviously not the first person to express this, but when you are the person who actually produces content yourself, how much you become better at explaining your ideas and how much more clarity you have. Like, you know, one of my big goals for the quarter was to improve the close rate on our sales calls. I mean, that's obviously a goal, but I was like, there's a few things I think I should do that are very basic that are going to make a big difference on the close rate here. And just incidentally, it like happened to go up pretty significantly last quarter. And I don't think any of it was really strategic as much as it was in the process of making this course. I had to just spend 6 hours making slides explaining everything that we do and why it's useful and everything that I know. And all of a sudden I had like frameworks, and I had these like talk tracks that I didn't like seek out to make, but then I just heard myself on sales calls using the same material that I made for the course. It's like, oh, well, I understand this well now. And that happens for kind of any business owner selling anything. It's like you take the time to write your about us, like a very basic welcome sequence that's like, about us, and then go through a basic customer journey. So it's like, what's the problem? Like an email kind of probing and agitating the problem, an email describing the general solution, an email describing why it's difficult to do yourself, and then an email describing why you're the right vendor for it, credibility, experience, whatever. Then all of a sudden you've just created this like really, really tight script and talk track of like, then you take the 2 sentence, the subject line and the intro to all those emails, and you memorize it. And this isn't like, go do this. I'm saying this just happens from doing that. It's like you've already practiced explaining the idea. So now you get on the sales call and you're so articulate and you're so succinct and you just said something, you've like fed the information in a way that the mind is prepared to receive. And then people are just like ready to buy. And you're like, oh goodness. So that's like regardless of like this, if 0 people listen to this, why is it useful? If 0 people read this, why is it useful? Right? There's the argument for 100 people, 1,000 people, someone's going to see this, you'll meet someone, whatever. But if no one does it, you are better off for having made it, because now that clarity and that confidence and just those rehearsed ways of expressing your ideas bleeds through everything that you do.
That's a great shout. I love it. Yeah, I think a lot of people get wrapped around the axle with like optimization and sticking to their goals. It's like, if you didn't say yes to that thing that was like off goal, you wouldn't have had that insight or, had that like clarity that actually like then inversely like helped you hit your goals of like increasing the close rate. So I think a lot of people like, they're just trying to do so many things at one time that they actually do nothing. And so it's just like, you should just, explore your curiosity and like do things that don't scale sometimes, because then you might see clarity, like what happened with you. So I think, I mean, I've struggled with that a lot too. It's just like bookmark, save, like I should read this, I should do this. It's like, no, I should focus. So I don't read any of that. And it's just like, you get caught between staying so focused and also being so scattered that you actually do neither of the things. So you're not being curious and you're not being focused. Anyway, that's just a little aside on, it's nice to just like follow your gut and do things that you think might be valuable.
Yeah, and I think an important factor, whether it's in hindsight or not, about both why we sell what we sell and the way that we sell it and why that program was helpful, is the optimization trap is how people prevent themselves from ever doing anything, because you've thought of all the things you could do. It's like, well, now I don't want to launch an email newsletter until I have a lead magnet and a landing page and testimonials and 10,000 social followers. And you've created fake obstacles to starting. And same thing with like, well, I just explained why it's so useful to create a course, but like, I probably would have never made that course if it wasn't for the fact that I had to show up, every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. and deliver the slides. Like I can tell you, all the slides were made the evening the day before, but like I still got it out and it was still good content. But like if it was just up to me to quote make a course versus like participate in the structured thing someone else has created guidelines around for me, like that's why we're successful in this business. Is all I'm saying is like, we're going to start a weekly newsletter for you. That's the entire promise at the outset. That's it.
Yeah.
Like we can hit that. You can hit that. Versus like, we need to make a lead magnet. Like we can't make a lead magnet for someone without a lot of their time to like approve it and like it and concept it and there's just a lot of resources, but like this is doable and we can sustain this forever. And it's useful to do this and sustain it forever. So just putting those constraints around what you're doing. And that's why, Ship 30 for 30 was so successful. And I don't know if it still is, but these things that like lead to people actually being effective at getting the work out the door are so much more impactful net than like these really beautiful strategies.
Totally. Yeah. Like Cut 30 is another one. I think they, the short form video course version of Ship 30. Yeah. It's like, say what you want. It's a course, but it's more of like an accountability framework. It's like when you join Ship 30 or Cut 30, you're shipping literally every day. So it's like the reps like, and the accountability are almost as valuable as like the structure, the framework, the like, is it going to be 5 tweet Tuesday or, like 5 tool Friday, whatever the framework is, it's not really the point.
Something else that doesn't scale that I think is an important part of your story are a lot of like permissionless apprentice, permissionless access type experiences. Kind of just another thing, you just kind of randomly shoot your shot and try to get yourself in the door in an unpredictable way. Are there any I know obviously the story of how you got connected with Greg is a great example of that. But is there anything like recent that you've just kind of like hammered out a random DM or just like fired something from the hip because you just wanted to knock down a door, skip the line?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of permissionless projects and really just like celebrating people on the internet when you see them doing something cool. Um, we've been pretty busy on stuff, so I haven't been slinging shots as much, but I have been like looking for collaborators and potential operators for stuff that we're working on in the pipeline. So that's mainly been my like DM slinging, is just like when I see something cool on the internet, I just like celebrate them and like want to learn more about them and jump on a call and just jam and get to know them, because like we found that a lot of our collaborations and partnerships happen with relationships that are 1+ maybe 3 years old. And so the deals that will get done in 2 years are like relationships that I made last year. So just like constantly trying to meet cool people that are with no intention of doing anything together tomorrow, the next day. So that's like really what I've been focusing on, my like permissionless projects. But yeah, I've seen a couple recently. I keep this like file and in my like a swipe file of just people who have shot their shot. I would love to make a coffee table book one day called Cold DM Hot Coffee. And it's just a bunch of like cool cold DMs and success stories, and while you drink hot coffee. But yeah, I've got a collection of all of those. And it's just cool to see like one guy on Twitter, I forget his name, but he like redesigned Zach Bryan's album artwork. And like that became like in the mix for like Zach Bryan's new album. There's one guy, Max. He runs Stiegelman Stable, this like brand in New York that it started as a hat company. And now they've got like clothes and stuff, but he had his break by literally shipping hats to the NBA bubble during COVID. And like the hats went crazy in the bubble because like all of the players were confined and this one player had like a sick like hat and everyone was asking. And now he's done collabs with like the New York Knicks and the Mets and the Rangers, and just like it's just crazy how he just literally sent one package to the bubble based on a contact that he had, and it just spread like wildfire. So whoever you want to hang out with on the internet, whoever you want to work with, you can shoot your shot. I've got a good friend who wants to work with Joe Pomp, Anthony's brother, and I was like, dude, we can make that happen. I promise you, like if you get tight on like what your value would be and where his gaps would be, these people like publish their plans and their brains on the internet at all times. So like a little forethought and a little reading between the lines and a little strategy, you can basically pluck the bottom of their to-do list off for them, and you'd be surprised how valuable that would be to project out and strategize the growth goal that they've had for 4 quarters and haven't ever gotten to it.
It's exactly. And I think there's a few ways to kind of relate this to what we've been discussing. Like, I think people have this hesitation to, and I'm a big believer of like free work as marketing in general. And that's free work as marketing for your own business. But then there's free work as like marketing yourself for your own career opportunities. It's kind of the same thing. Like, one, it's likely still useful and productive to go through that exercise, even if like your DM goes unopened. Like you do and there's ways to scope the project. But like to your friend who wants to work with Joe, doing the project, like going through the exercise and completing the work does improve your skills at a thing. And then if you find someone else, it's not Joe Pump, but it's like another sports creator. So that project is probably useful to someone else, or the skills you made in the process are probably useful. Like you're sharpening your axe the entire time, which is totally worthwhile. And like, I think about that I think a lot about the numbers, just again, customer acquisition costs. Like that's just a real thing. And how do we lower them? Like everything that you do in marketing is uncertain. Like you just don't know what is going to pay off and what's not. There's certain things that like you've done it before, so you can kind of project that it's similar. But if there's, you go do free work for 10 people, you still only expect, whatever percentage of that to come back. But then if you go and actually, now that I have like a team and the margins are like very easy to look at, which is like, okay, I'm going to spend 5 hours of this person's time. I'm going to spend 100 hours of this person's time to do free work for 20 people. So I'm going to do 20 5-hour free projects. That is, then let's just assume, to make the math easy, this person earns $20 an hour. So that is a $10,000 marketing experiment. But the expected value is basically the same if I run the numbers and expect how many meetings you're going to convert. Because if that free work for 20 people is like really high quality and you pick them well and the outreach is on point, like you're going to get a response from half of them. You're going to get at least 5 of them on a call. So now I'm looking at I'm doing the math too quickly on the fly to like make the numbers pencil out the right way. But that's okay, $2,500 per call, but the close rate's going to be 50%, right? Because it's just, you've done the great work. You've made them, let's say that easy example here. You've written a 5 email nurture sequence. It takes 5 hours to do it, an hour per email. And now you've done that versus now it's like, okay, I'm going to buy ads on this platform and expect to get meetings at $500 per meeting, which I expect to close at 10% because they're just random freaking people. And so the expected value of the free work is actually higher when you pencil out a certain situation. And then if you are good at what you do, like where do you have leverage in the market? It's like in the microeconomics. Like I can produce newsletters efficiently because we have templates, because we have tools, whereas I have no advantage over buying ads on Facebook over anyone else. Whereas like I'm getting impressions at a discount using the advantage of the machine that I have that I can use unlimited, whereas other people have to pay to use the machine.
Yeah, and like that body of work that you built up doing the free stuff is like so much better than sending someone look at our meta ads or whatever, It's like you can stop doing the free work at a certain point and just be like, look at all of the work we've done. It's like you don't even need to necessarily go in for like and do a customized free project for someone to win them over if it's like a smaller or medium-sized lead. Obviously, you can still do it for like the big whales, but at a certain time, like you said, you can leverage all the work that you've already done if you package it up in a nice way. It's like, look at the sequence we wrote for X, big name. And the social proof from that is just like, now your cost per call is like equal to Meta.
Exactly. Well, we're coming up here against the end of our time. Are there any other kind of big, ideas? I wanted to get more into like, that there's a lot more we could have discussed about communities and everything like that. But what are you like specifically kind of looking at? Anything that you think has changed going into next year? Anything that's like a big focus you kind of have? I'll make this into a more coherent question. There's a lot of projects that, you're like, I want to do that. I've spent a lot of time doing this. Like you've just launched a lot of experiments this year. Like what is something that you're doubling down on going into next year, or something that you're no longer doing? Something that like, I've seen this work this year. I didn't get as much effort into it as I wanted to. Next year, it's a big priority to like, again, I think newsletters are useful. I sent like 1/6 last year, going to kill it weekly. Or like, I thought it was really useful to tweet, but Twitter's kind of like something kind of along those lines.
Yeah. We're really focused on building skyscrapers, where last year or so we were building strip malls and we were like spread out across different verticals and different experiments and properties. But now we're like really trying to add floors to the foundation that we've already laid, and doing so with leveraging AI to build SaaS and really like wireframe micro SaaS applications. Like the builds still like are you still need like an engineer, so we're just leveraging AI to like spin up projects and mechanisms for things that think would be interesting as products. And then agents is a big one we're thinking about, like everyone, but just like how to like usher agents into our workflow as well as teach other people how to leverage them. And then we're still like really big on community, because the more people that you have in your community and membership and then nurture, like I think it's like a new email newsletter that's like way more intentional and face to face, where like the newsletter is kind of a faceless thing. But if you have a community and people interacting, you literally are like, you're fishing in a fishbowl versus fishing in the ocean. And so we just love designing communities where people are like interconnected and working together, and we get to like watch and participate and launch soft launch things to the community, see what they like, see what they don't, and just reduces the iteration feedback loop and keeps it really tight, where instead of relying on like algorithms and social, we can launch stuff inside of our community. So to sum it up, AI, agents, SaaS, and community is really where we're like doubling down. And then YouTube as well on the media front. Like we're really bullish on behind the scenes kind of cooking videos. You can see that with the Startup Ideas podcast that Greg's been doing. So we're going to be doing more of that. I think just people want to see more behind the scenes, like more live cooking, like mess ups. Like I think, we had like this, like everyone was talking about how like Sam Sulek and like the rise of like the raw video
Unedited.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. Unedited. Like, I don't think it's that as much as it is like, just like being like who you are on like where it feels like you're just like hanging out with people. And I think that's what people are really like drawn to. And it's like, if you can't figure out an automation live on screen, it's like, that's how it's going to be when I try to go do it, So I'm like, it's expectation setting, which actually in reverse, like brings up the trust a ton. And it's a lot easier to edit too. So it's a win across the board. So we're going to be doing more behind the scenes, like showing our process and really like diving into like how we build stuff 0 to 1. So look for that as YouTube goes more Netflix.
I like that. Yeah, this is a super, super quick story. Then we'll close it out. Kind of ties together a lot of ideas. Some kid sent me a DM on Twitter or an email, maybe both. It's like, hey, I may want to write a scripted video for your YouTube channel. If you record it, I'll edit it, SEO, thumbnail, whatever. I'm like, sure, I'll take the script. And so I hit him up and I was like, I don't want you to make a script without me approving the idea, because then I'm not going to record it. It's like, tell me the idea. I'll say that's a good idea. Then we'll script it and then I'll record it. So he sent me the script. I did 2 takes on Friday or Saturday. The first take I did, I like try to do the thing where like you read the script and like you kind of maintain eye contact with the camera the whole time. So you just read a line, remember the line, say the line. And it just came out so bad. I was like, I just could not for the life of me remember more than 9 words in sequence. And then I sent him that and I was like, this is probably awful. And then I did another one where I just did Loom style with the script open on the screen of me just like riffing on the topics, like as if I'm just reading and like practicing saying the video. And obviously having said the whole script once, that probably helped. The second take's going to be better. And I don't want to be like, well, the second take's better and that's the lesson, is that do something twice and duh. But the second was just like no pressure, just like me talking about these ideas and just with the script on screen as just a kind of a visual aid. And it just like came so natural and so much more energy and enthusiastic. So permissionless project, YouTube, a lot of big ideas there. Hopefully,
totally.
He said he'll have it for me today or tomorrow. But yeah, I'm big on just doing Loom style educational YouTube videos. Just like, here's me explaining this as if I'm explaining it to someone on my team. Like that's one of the easiest frames, is like there's a junior writer on my team, a junior marketer on my team who I'm trying to really communicate this to. Like if I was just a one-on-one with that person, how would I structure it? Or I could even do that, like a tutoring session with a person on the team. Like watch me teach this person how to like what I know about this topic. And then that just becomes YouTube content as well.
Yeah. Crunchy video, I'm super into. Like just like unedited, but also like, did he shoot this like on a potato? Like, as long as the screen recording's good, I think you just get crunchy and just be yourself. I think there's you'll learn a ton even if no one sees it. So I love it. Shoot me that video when it's out. I want to see.
Yeah, it should be out hopefully next couple of days. Jordan, where are you most active online for people who want to keep in touch with yourself, learn more at the studio, etc.?
Yeah, on X, JRDNMIX, Jordan Mix. That's mainly where I'm tweeting ideas, posting ideas. You can find me on LinkedIn too.
Cool. Well, it's been a blast. Glad we could jam.
Dude, man.
Thanks, Jordan.
I appreciate it. Good hanging.